Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Peyton Simmers, alongside Zach Humphreys and Owen Russell. With the Stanley Cup playoffs officially underway, along with action around the NBA playoffs and the MLB, we have a lot to discuss. In the Zone starts now. Starting on the hardwood this week, the first round of the NBA playoffs have begun, and it has been nothing short of exciting. With news coming out of Memphis Tuesday from head coach Taylor Jenkins stating that all-star guard Ja Morant has a soft tissue bruise on his right hand after an ugly fall late in the fourth. Morant would return to the bench and not check back in as the Lakers would go on a 23-11 run to win the game 128-112. Zach, what does this injury mean for the Grizzlies' chance of making it past the King?
I would say that it hurts big time because currently it's a game time decision is what they're saying. But based off of watching the injury and seeing how he reacted to it and seeing how the players and all the coaches and staff reacted to it, I don't think he's going to be in for game 2. And that would be tough because now you're relying. I know Dillon Brooks isn't going to carry this team. I know that means you're going to put a lot more pressure on Jaren Jackson to be that guy. He played great last game, dropping 31 points. That was incredible. But I don't think they're going to be able to win game 2 without Ja Morant leading them through the Lakers.
I really think that this is the worst case scenario right now for the Grizzlies. I think that LA starting off this season, this is not the same LA team that we saw at the beginning of the season. They've improved so much since then. I really think that if the Grizzlies want any chance to win this series, they need Ja Morant in each game they're playing. But I want to go back to the game itself. I mean, Anthony Davis, wow. This man, when he's not injured, incredible. It's just incredible to watch. And we talk about the big two in LA a lot, LeBron and Anthony Davis. There's a big four almost. Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, they combined for 52 points. How is Memphis supposed to combat that?
I don't think anybody could have seen Rui Hachimura actually coming off the bench and scoring like he did. And I mean, Austin Reeves has just become a stellar shooter. That's the shooter that they were craving during the beginning of the season before they made all the trades to get rid of Russ, to get rid of Alex Caruso. And now they finally built that team. But also, like you said, it felt like I finally watched Prime AD. Yeah. I mean, when him defending as the nearest defender, they shot 5 for 19 from the field. Okay. Like, AD had lockdown, and half of those shots were blocks. He ended the night with 7 blocks on the night. Anthony Davis had such a great game, and I mean, if he can take this into game 2 without Ja Morant, and Jaren Jackson, who isn't the best offensively, yes, he's the defensive player of the year, but he is not that offensive guy, especially with Anthony Davis on him. I don't think he cracks 20 if Anthony Davis is the main defender during the entire game.
Right, and that's where I really think that Desmond Bane and Dillon Brooks, their roles in this game are going to be exponentially bigger. They need to step up. They need to have that mindset. Next person up. Ja's not here. Got to step up. They're still in it, Grizzlies are. I think that it's going to take a lot, though.
Absolutely.
From one injured superstar to another, over in Milwaukee, former MVP and All-Star captain Giannis Antetokounmpo suffered what was announced Tuesday to be a lower back contusion after going for a layup against Kevin Love. And also, right before the half, Miami Heat shooting guard Tyler Hero injured his shooting hand, which was later announced as broken after diving for a loose ball. Now, Owen, what is the plan moving forward for both the Heat and the Bucks?
Well, I think you have to change the plan a lot if you're the Heat now, because Tyler Hero, 6th Man of the Year last year, him not being there, you're going to notice that right off the bat. It's not going to be good for them if they can't figure that out. It might have to mean that Jimmy Butler has to step up even more than he already has this season. And I mean, I don't know how you can do that considering what we've seen Jimmy Butler do, but it's maybe you look to Bam for more productivity in the low post maybe. I don't know. You got to go up against Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, people like that. In terms of Milwaukee getting hurt, I really don't think this is going to affect them too much. If Giannis is out for more than a series, maybe, but I think they can win this series without him. I mean, it's the Bucks. They have the best record in the NBA this season for a reason, in the East at least. So it's like, yeah, I don't necessarily see this.
I'm sorry, but the only reason they have the best record in the East is because Giannis Antetokounmpo carries that whole city of Milwaukee on his back and decides to put up 35 points a game along with like 12 rebounds.
He's got a supporting cast around him.
Yeah. Chris Middleton played great. He had 33 points. It was a good game overall, but Miami Heat ended up winning for a reason. Also, give it Jimmy Butler, Bam. That duo was scary, right? But also now, like you said, now that Tyler Hero's out, who do they go to? Victor Oladipo was still on the bench. It would be risky with his knee surgeries that he still had, and he's still not 100%.
I think it's more likely they go to Gabe Vincent and Max Strus before they go to Oladipo. And if I'm a Miami fan, I'm scared about that. Because Gabe Vincent, good, not consistent. Max Strus, I would not want him on a playoff roster. That's just me. But
they also may throw Kyle Lowry in that position as well. They have a lot of lineups to potentially make for this, and especially now without Giannis, you could potentially go small ball. You only have Brook Lopez to worry about, so you don't need somebody to worry about guarding Giannis or anybody big. Jrue Holiday isn't that big of a guy, so there isn't really much to worry about on that aspect. Especially now that Heat ended up coming out with a win game one, that's huge. Especially now, if Giannis will be out for game two. If they go in and win game two, who says that the Heat don't come out on top of this?
I say that the Heat don't come out on top of this.
It totally depends what the trainer and what the organization says about Giannis after game two, sees how long he's actually going to be out.
What I'm really interested to see going forward is Bobby Portis. I love Bobby Portis. He's going to have to step up big with Giannis not in this game. He's shown that he can do it. It's going to be interesting.
I love Bobby Portis. He's been such a reliable guy throughout his career coming off the bench, and I mean, he just proved it by dropping 21 just this past game.
Incredible.
Even with all the injuries and highlights from this past week in the NBA, all of which have been overshadowed by the on-the-court action by the one and only Draymond Green, midway through the fourth quarter, Kings foreman Domantas Sabonis would fall attempting to get a rebound. As his arms got tangled with Draymond's legs, Draymond would go to step on and jump off Sabonis, leading to ejection from the game. Kings would go on to win this game, holding a comfortable 2-game lead against the former champs, as Draymond has now been suspended from Game 3 without pay. Zach, how will this affect the Warriors' chances of mounting a comeback?
Well, now it just went from Kings in 6 to Kings in 5. There was never a real chance that the Warriors were going to win this because, I mean, the Kings are the 3rd seed for a reason. I still don't understand why there's still a bunch of disrespect in Sacramento. Maybe it's because it's Sacramento, so that's not much of a brag, I guess. But, I mean, the Kings have just played great. And without Draymond, he doesn't really produce on the offensive side, but he's a solid defensive player down in the paint. So that's going to be missed as well, especially with De'Aaron Fox. And now Domantas Sabonis, who is going to still be playing, and I'm pretty sure he's perfectly healthy after that. Maybe not perfect, but he's healthy enough to go out there and drop 25 points a game.
Kind of like what Zach was saying, you can't really hurt your chances when your chances didn't exist to begin with. And I think in this case, people got overhyped with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson being on this championship defending team and are ignoring how insanely good Sacramento was this season. Now, in terms of the kick itself, the suspension and all that, I think it's obvious that Sabonis grabbed Draymond. He grabbed his ankle, but he didn't mean to do it, I don't think. What's also obvious is that Draymond curb stomped Sabonis, Seth Rollins style. It's unexcusable. It's not a basketball play. I think the suspension is justified in that.
Not at all. And I mean, I was watching the game 3 minutes prior. There was a incident between those two where Sabonis went in, put up a layup, and Draymond was going to inbound the ball, but a foul was called on him because they said he backed into him. So Draymond was also kind of heated there. 3 minutes later, he's stomping him on the ground and jumping on his rib cage like it's Sky Zone.
And we know we know that Draymond's aggressive. That's his style of play. But you just gotta tame it. You gotta reel it in, especially in a high stakes like this. I mean, now you're down 2-0. You have a hot Kings team. You have Kevin Huerter of all people stepping up and making like 20 points a game.
Exactly.
You gotta have all hands on deck if you're Golden State right now.
And even watching the game, I think that this changed the entire aspect because the Warriors were on a roll. They started to mount their comeback. But that technical gave the Kings more time to regroup, be able to dial in, and make sure they can focus on not blowing this lead.
Right, exactly. I think this whole series is going to be great. One thing I do want to say before we keep going, Kevon Looney, I think if anything, is going to be the reason the Warriors don't win this series. He's not stepping up. I don't think he's a playoff caliber center. If they lose anything, look at that matchup between Sabonis and Looney.
Now taking a look at the matchups between both 4 and 5 seeds over in the West. The Suns even the series with a game Pierce with a comeback against Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. As both teams pack their bags for Los Angeles for Game 3, the Cleveland Cavaliers are heading to the Big Apple to face the Knicks for Game 3 of the tied series. After New York edged to a 1-game victory, Darius Garland led the way to 6 threes to give the Cavs the Game 2 victory. Owen, which series are the most excited for, and who do you like to move on?
So we'll look at the West first over here. In terms of Clippers-Suns, I really like the Suns to win this series. I love the Clippers. I love seeing them play. They have a really good team around Kawhi and around Paul George, who's not playing in this series, but when he comes back, it's going to be good if he does this season. But the Suns are just too powerful. They have Kevin Durant. They have Devin Booker. They have Chris Paul. They have Torrey Craig, who just dropped 6 or 7 three-point shots last night. I don't see them losing this series, and it's just really good from the Suns. Really good looks from them. Going over to the East, the Cavs have really impressed me. Honestly, I will say this right now. The Cavs do look like a team that can come out of the East and win the East right now. I think that they're in a better position than Milwaukee. I think that it's going to be the Cavs coming out of the East. I'll just say that right now.
Can I cut you off right there, please?
I really want to hear what you got to say about this.
The Cavs coming out of the East, they're not even going to make it out the first round.
Oh my!
The only way that the Cavs make it out of the first round is if R.J. Barrett keeps shooting 20% from the field. That's the only way they move on. Once he starts to find the bottom of the basket, it's over for Cavaliers. I'm sorry. It's bad looks when one of your players needs to nail 6 threes and score 35, 40 points a game. And that way, you guys just keep passing it to them. The Cavs are looking real good. I think the Knicks are just going to pull away with it.
With an inconsistent backcourt, inconsistent front court, pardon me, of Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson had 2 points in this last game. I'm pretty sure, looking at the stat sheet. That's just unacceptable play right there. Meanwhile, you go over to Cleveland and you see their insane backcourt, 2 All-Stars, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. I'd venture to say that they are the best in the playoffs right now in terms of backcourts, point guard, shooting guard. Really, I think the Knicks can only do so much. I don't think they can win a 7-game series against this team that has Donovan Mitchell, a superstar, who has a young team like Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley competing against these inconsistent players. And I just really think that the Cavs have what it takes. One
of the biggest things that I mentioned in a few shows ago when I was last on was the biggest thing about the NBA playoffs is having depth. And that's why I think the Clippers are going to make it out in 7. Because the Suns rely too much on their starters. And I get it when you have KD, when you have Devin Booker, when you have Ayton, when you have CP3, when you have that starting 5, you can't help but give them the ball.
Right.
You're relying way too much on them. That way, when they do sit out, the bench is just naturally outscoring the Suns bench by 20 points each game. Like the past game, they got outscored by 17, and then the game beforehand, they got outscored by 24. The Suns do look good when Kevin Durant is starting to make shots, when Devin Booker is starting to make shots. Once the starters need that rest,
and that's
when the Clippers begin to take that lead.
When they are making their shots, they are making their shots. Mm-hmm. And right now, they are consistently making their shots. I think it was Devin Booker had 30 in Game 1, something along those lines.
Yes.
I can't remember specifically, but they've been consistent. They've been showing up. I do think that overall, just all those players on Phoenix, they're going to be too much for Kawhi to handle. But I will be honest, Kawhi has looked insanely good. Definitely an all-star. Definitely a star caliber player in this league.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
This past week has been busy for Marauder Athletics as we send it over to Nicole Dalton for the latest in Ville sports. Over to you, Nicole.
Welcome back, Marauders. I'm Nicole Dalton, and I've got a full recap from this past week in Ville sports. Baseball had major success this week, winning all 4 of the games they played against Shippensburg and Wilmington, beating Shippensburg 3-2, 7-6, and 8-6, as well as beating Wilmington 12-7. This is the first time in 20 years that Millersville has won at Wilmington and now has won games against Wilmington in back-to-back seasons, collectively scoring 25 runs between the 2 games. This makes the Marauders' record 31-6 for the season. Women's tennis won 7-0 against the Kutztown Golden Bears, securing them the #2 seed in the PSAC tournament. However, they fell 5-2 against Mercyhurst, making them 6-9 for the season. Men's tennis fell short to both Mercyhurst and with a score of 4-3 and Edinburgh with a final score of 7-0. This game locks the Marauders in the #3 seed in the PSAC tournament. Softball had a great start to the week, winning 2 of their doubleheaders against Bowie State and Mansfield. At their doubleheader against East Stroudsburg, they would fall short, losing 9-3 and 11-7. This makes them 23-21 overall and 10-12 in PSAC play. Good luck to all the Marauders competing as the spring season continues and they fight for a spot in the postseason. Now let's head back to the desk for some updates on the Stanley Cup playoffs. Peyton?
Thanks, Nicole. And yes, the Stanley Cup playoffs are officially underway as action kicked off Monday with an exciting first day, with 2 overtime games resulting in upsets in the Western Conference. The Minnesota Wild held their own with an incredible defensive play, as Dallas was left staring at stars as Ryan Hartman secured the win in double overtime. And just shortly after in Edmonton, the Oilers couldn't hang on to the 2-goal lead going into the third period as they allowed 3 goals in the third. The Kings forced the game into overtime, was just what they needed to do to secure them the win and sit them atop the throne, leading the series 1-0. Zach, both of these games set the field for what U.S. fans expect us to be in exciting playoffs. What was your reaction to the first night?
I felt like it was great. I mean, of course, the first 2 games, the Bruins winning, we all kind of saw that coming. And then even with the Hurricanes beating the Islanders, those are 2 #1 seeds. We saw those kind of happening. If they win a game or 2, that's cool. But I feel like we kind of see who's coming out on top. But I mean, the Wild and Stars game, that one was kind of shocking to me. I wasn't exactly ready to see a double overtime, especially with how hot the Stars were going into. They were coming into the playoffs, winning 8 straight, coming in to go up against the Wild, who played great defensively. Like, they didn't give the Stars a chance during the whole third period and even overtime. They really locked up on the defensive side and played phenomenal all the way down to the final buzzer.
Definitely impressed with both these games. I really think that out of the 2 of them, the Kings was more impressive to me. I didn't expect the Kings to come back from how down they were, but they did. I got to give props to them. They've looked good all season. I really think that in that section of the playoffs, they can do well. On the other hand, Minnesota, definitely think they're capable of beating Dallas in this series, but I will say Dallas ended the season hot. They definitely look hot going into this playoffs. I think they can rebound a lot better, a lot easier than the Oilers would be able to against the Kings.
Absolutely, and I mean, as we were talking about like the hot teams, Edmonton, they were coming into this thing winning 11 straight. So to see both of these teams kind of fizzle down in the game 1, of course, I feel like this is just a fluke when it comes to the Oilers. When I was watching the Stars and the Wild, it seemed like the Stars couldn't quite figure it out offensively, or maybe that was just the Wild playing good defense. But I feel like this Oilers choke was just a fluke. They're definitely going to make it out the first round. There's no issue there. The Kings, I give them credit where it's due. They played a great hockey game. They forced that comeback, sending it into overtime late, and then securing it, of course, within 1 overtime, unlike the Wild and Stars. But I don't see the Kings making it any farther than this first round.
See, that's where I got to disagree with you a little bit there. I think that the Kings definitely are not as good of a team as the Oilers. I will say that right now. The Oilers do look good. I think they have all the tools that are there to succeed. But I've seen the Kings win some pretty improbable games this season. They definitely are I think you're underrating them a little bit, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see. It should be interesting.
Against the Oilers, definitely. No way. But
I'm more inclined to take the Kings. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Now taking a look at Tuesday night's slate of games, believe it or not, we witnessed a road sweep across the league last night. The Rangers and the Jets held the lead all game, along with the Lightning making a statement and the Kraken pulling through their postseason debut. Owen, which of these 4 teams came as the biggest surprise to you?
I mean, it has to be Seattle. I mean, their debut in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I mean, what is this, year 2 for them? And they come out, win the game. That's pretty impressive. We saw the same thing kind of happen with Vegas when they first started out. The expansion team comes in, does pretty well to start off. It took them a little bit longer, but They're definitely in their group. I don't think they're going to be going out of this round. I don't think they'll get far in the playoffs if they do get out of this round, but I'm along for the ride. I like to see it happen. I like to see the underdog do well, and I think that right now they are pretty much the big underdog. Otherwise, I really did like the Rangers game. I think going over to New York, all that area rivalry definitely plays into it, and New York showed what they're capable of. Not saying New Jersey is not going to be able to get past this, but I definitely think that the Rangers are in the driver's seat in this one.
I definitely feel like that matchup could come down to the wire. Those two teams played evenly the entire game. I really enjoyed watching that game. Of course, the Rangers started to pull away, but on one of my favorite games, it was an obvious blowout, but watching the Lightning go out there, and I feel like this really was a statement game. The Lightning seemed to struggle right there near the end of the regular season. They ended up securing that spot in the playoffs and immediately going out scoring 3 in the first, and then letting the Maple Leafs kind of score just for morale purposes, and then just hitting them again with 4 more. Like that, I felt like watching that game, they were just making it look way too easy, to the point where Toronto even switched out their goalies, and yet they still scored on I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. They blanked on Joseph Wall. Yes, that's who they brought in. Yeah, and they scored on him, and he only had to face 5 shots. I felt like this was a statement game. I feel like the Lightning are going to run with this. There's no way that they slow down now. They're going to keep the pedal to the metal, and I can't wait to see how far they get.
It makes me think back to those consecutive Stanley Cups, and I do like to see the Lightning. Not really the first team I thought of when I was thinking about the East this year, but definitely think they have a case. Definitely.
Switching to focus on baseball, each league has started to shape itself in terms of talent and standings. In the American League, the Rays, Rangers, and even the Blue Jays have had the strongest start as we near the 20-game mark. Zach, do you have a clear favorite in the American League, or is it just too early to tell?
It's definitely a little too early to tell, but we can definitely tell by now who is looking real good, who's looking like they may sit around the 500 wild card mark, and who is not going to see October. If we were to start with the AL East, I love the AL East. That is just such a competitive division with the Rays. If they didn't start 13-0, then I feel like it would just be naturally closer the way that the Jays, the Oilers, the Red Sox, and the Orioles are all within 2 games. And I mean, the Orioles have just become one of my favorite teams to watch. They've just been really exciting so far with their young core, with Adley Rutschman taking the lead, and he has just really blossomed into this superstar.
AL East, definitely, I can see where you're coming from. Orioles turned it on last year, didn't make it to the playoffs, but they definitely are looking like they have the capability this year. Like you said, Adley Rutschman, definitely one of the up-and-coming big players. I think the Rays at the end of the day are going to win the AL East. I don't necessarily think it'll be a blowout race. I think the Yankees are going to give them some competition. What I will say for certain is the Boston Red Sox are not that team this year. In terms of AL East, they're just not competing, which makes it even crazier that they swept the Angels, I'm pretty sure, this past series. Let's go over to the AL Central real quick here, though. I think
it wasn't a sweep, but anyway.
Well, pretty much. But going over to the AL Central, I think there's a clear favorite over there. It's the Guardians. They have the young core. They have Steve Kwan, hitting machine. They have Jose Ramirez, absolute monster. They have that bullpen. I really think that they are going to – they started off a little bit slow, but I think they're going to pick it up. I think they are going to win this AL Central.
I can't exactly argue with how the Guardians really look. They are a well-built team, like you just listed. It's very easy to win that division, though. I could go in and play Stephen Kwan's position, and I'm winning that division as well. I'm batting .300 against all those pitchers. It's not difficult. You have the Tigers, you have the Royals, you have the Twins, who are still looking sharp, and the White Sox.
See, when you're sharing a division with the Guardians, though, I mean, you're bound to lose at least 10, 20 games a season if you're playing in that same division. So let's be honest.
Y'all just lost the series to the Tigers. I don't even want to get into that conversation.
It was a fluke, okay?
A fluke, yeah. All right, let's get away from this whole poverty division and let's move on to the AL West, because the AL West, I think, has come to a shock to me for the sake that the Rangers have continued to prove themselves. They just won 12-3 today, which puts them at 11-6, I believe, and that's still putting them in the driver's seat so far. They're currently up, I believe, 2.5 games right now. But yeah, that's still setting them atop. I mean, and also we have the Angels, and then the Stros in third, and then the Mariners in fourth, who were just in the playoffs just this past year. I feel like that's a natural shock for any baseball fan.
I can tell you right now, the AL West is going to be the most fun division in baseball to watch this season. I really think that these teams are going to combine, do some good things together. The Rangers, when you think of baseball, you don't think of the Texas Rangers first off. And that's what I love about this season in particular. We have a bunch of teams like that are actually doing well. This is what the Texas Rangers have been building towards for 2 or 3 years at this point with their free agent moves and their signings. I really want to see them put it together, and I think they will this year.
Now looking at the National League, the Atlanta Braves have looked as the best team in the MLB over the last few weeks, with the Brewers and Diamondbacks not far behind them. Outside of the potential injuries, it doesn't look like anything else is going to be stopping the Braves anytime soon. Owen, is there a team in your mind that could overtake the Braves in the rankings, or are the Braves too sound to make a pick?
I'm going to be very bold here. I really do think that Pittsburgh is going to give them a big run for their money. I don't like to get on the hype train too soon. I know that the Pirates are not historically a team that keeps up momentum going into the season, but I have hope this season. They have the brother of Jackson Smith-Njigba is playing. I believe he's the shortstop for that team. He's had a few hits this season, a few runs. Ji-Hwan Bae, South Korean prospect that they have. He hit a walk-off home run a week ago. They have Ji-Man Choi, who is amazing. I got to see him play in person for Tampa Bay. Definitely can hit the long ball. Definitely can get your hits. The NL Central, though, it's a tough division. They have the Brewers, they have the Cardinals to face off with, but I really do think, from what I've seen, they can pull it together, get more cohesive, and I think they have a potential to win the division. And I think they can make a decent chunk in the playoffs. I think they can get there.
Here's the problem with that. The Brewers have really come alive. Their young core has started to actually really play really well. That was actually that was probably the top team that I thought of to dethrone the Braves. That's really tough to dethrone the Braves right now because Matt Olson is having a day. I mean, Sean Murphy is finally settling in that Braves uniform. And I mean, of course, Acuna is just casually batting, 368. Insane. But I mean, like, the Brewers are looking really good. They're looking really sharp. I believe they're only like 1 game behind the Braves, which for a team like that to all of a sudden click, Yelich is starting to find his spot again. They're winning 5 of their last 6, and I really like Willie Adams as well. Willie, he's really stepped into that role. He's young, and he's starting to actually connect bat to ball. I really like that. And then I really like the NL West. Yeah, the Diamondbacks is I
did
feel
not
like
expect the Diamondbacks.
No, they are playing really well, and I mean, you can never leave out the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they may look shaky now, but they are just injured. Mookie Betts is out on paternity leave. Once they get healthy, the Dodgers are going to be that team.
Who do you have, early prediction, who do you have in the World Series? Look, so far now.
The World Series?
It's pretty early, but
that's a little
I'd say
too
it's
far
a little
right
too
now.
early to tell.
Who do we want to see? Let's be honest here.
A fun team that I'd love to see back in would definitely be the Phillies, and I'm not just trying to ride that bandwagon. They were just a naturally fun team to watch last year with the whole excitement around them. I feel like the Phillies would be a great team to join.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Some big news for Padres fans, having been anticipating for over a year, is finally becoming a reality as Fernando Tatis Jr. is returning to the MLB after his 80-game suspension for using performing-enhancing drugs. Although the Padres have had their star power win important games, they have had a pretty lukewarm start to the season, sitting at 8-11. Owen, can Tatis shift the Padres' momentum, or is this another mediocre season for San Diego?
I think considering what he's done in the minor league up till now and coming back and getting back into shape for the MLB, I think that as soon as he gets back into the brown and yellow for the Padres, he's going to do well. In terms of if the Padres are going to do well this season, they never seem to put it together. This is a team with World Series aspirations. This is a team that would have loved to win the whole thing last year. They didn't do it. I don't see this being their year, especially with the shakeups that have been happening with the rule changes and everything. It's just made it a lot more difficult for them, I feel, and I don't think that San Diego is going to do much in terms of the postseason.
And I mean, just to bounce off of that, it's the fact that I also believe that Tatis just naturally has so much hype built around him to the point where the Padres just always seem to be these World Series favorites. And to be honest, FanDuel is just robbing people of money if you bet on them to win the World Series or even make it to the World Series at this point. I mean, Tatis is really good. Like you said, he is batting very nice in the minors, keeping his swing nice and smooth. But I mean, it really doesn't help when your team is 27th in the league in combined batting average. Willson Contreras is doing his job. He's batting north of 300. I believe it's 347 off the top of my head. But he's batting nice. And then you look at guys like Manny, who is still producing, but nobody else is hitting the ball, and that's what you need. Right. Well, and the problem is Willson Contreras does play Tatis' position. So what do you do now? Do you keep Contreras? Do you move him over to second, hoping to keep that hot bat? Do you just substitute and hope that Tatis can jump right back in, bat 300, continue to hit home runs every 3 games? It's going to be interesting to see how they figure that out, but I feel like with how their current situation is going, I don't see the Padres really taking that extra leap.
Now, last episode we talked about the red-hot Tampa Bay Rays potentially breaking the record for the longest winning streak to the start of the season. The previous record was held by the 1987 Milwaukee Brewers at 13 games, which the Rays were able to tie. Unfortunately, the Rays were beaten by the Blue Jays, which would ultimately end that streak. Now, with 3 losses on their record, Zach, is it too much of an overreaction to say this Tampa Bay streak was a fluke, or are they still a top team in the league?
I would consider them top 2 and not second. The Braves are killing it, but the way that the Rays, people would say, oh man, they played against terrible teams. The amount of runs, the bats, the defense, everything that they are doing is perfect. They are number 1 in team batting average. They're tied with Philly thanks to Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm. But they're number 1 in on-base percentage. They're number 1 they have 42 home runs so far, which is mind-boggling, along with 130 RBIs. This team is putting together some crazy offensive numbers. Yes, they lost to the Blue Jays, who have Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero. That's a great team. That's a great team to lose to. I believe they just won to the Reds today. I believe they won like 8-0. So that's putting them at 16-3. That, to me, that is no fluke. That is a team taking over the league.
Definitely not a fluke. Not a fluke at all. 13 wins in a row, especially in the MLB. You can't do that without some level of talent, and high talent at that. In terms of whether they're the best in the MLB, I do think they're the best. I do. Like what Zach said, they're number 1 in a lot of different categories right now. The only team that I could really see being a problem for them might be the Braves. I mean, in terms of record, that is. They're not going to play each other that much this season, if at all. But I really don't see a team that's going to finish with a better record than the Rays, to be honest with you. I just don't see it.
Of course it is still early to tell. They've only played 19 games, and I'm afraid that with this train that they are obviously running through, I'm really hoping that they don't happen to run into any injuries or any serious slumps, because Yandy Diaz has just been tattooing the ball. I mean, he's got 17 hits. 6 of them have been going over the wall. Diaz has surprised me when I'm watching. Wander Franco, of course, he's doing his thing, batting 300, of course. And then Randy Arozarena, they're just casually doing their thing. But, I mean, this team is real. This team is good through 20 games. They're not striking out. They're hitting the ball. They may not get on base every time, but they're legit. For anybody to say that they aren't is ludicrous.
That will do it for today's edition. Hold on, let me redo that. And that will do it for today's episode. For Zach Humphreys, Owen Russell, and Nicole Dalton, I'm Peyton Simmers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you right here next time on In the Zone.